Hey everybody, Evan Kirstel here, and I am super excited for this chat around the present and future state of enterprise mobility with a real guru, a real expert in this space. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, Evan. Thank you very much for bringing me on. I'm excited to talk today about the enterprise mobility for sure. But thanks again.
Well, thanks for being here. Social mobile, what a great name. Two of my favorite things in one name. Maybe introduce social mobile and yourself and your role at the company.
Yeah, sure. So Social Mobile is a company headquartered out of Hollywood, Florida. We build customized private label certified Android devices for several different verticals, such as retail, healthcare, and we're also deploying devices or making devices for the Department of Defense, certain agencies there. So we basically we build the solution from the hardware through the operating system, through management of the device, through reverse logistics, complete solutions from top to bottom.
Oh, that is fascinating. And you know a thing or two about mobility. Maybe give us a snapshot into your background and your almost a decade with Google.
Yeah, no problem. So I ended my military career. I am a veteran of the
Oh,
Army.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Um, I've been in mobility since mobility first came out, right? When I say that, I mean I'm going to be dating myself, but when Windows mobile phones were first out, even before the Windows mobile phones, there was these things called iPacs that were made by Compaq, and Hewlett Packard had a
Mm,
couple of. Essentially, it used something called ActiveSync, but you had to connect it through a USB connection. So I was on the scene when the first Androids and iPhones first came out, and they weren't really enterprise manageable. So I've been around since then. I was at a startup EMM years and years ago, which was acquired by McAfee. So I spent a few years at McAfee, and then McAfee acquired Intel. I was there as a global security professional, and then did another startup because I've just put myself through pain, I guess. um, and then found myself at Google, and so I was at Google for about almost 9 years. And then 2 years ago, I decided to join Social Mobile because I really enjoyed what they were doing. They were a partner that I took care of when I was at Google. And so yeah, that's kind of a quick synopsis of the last 18 years or so. Before that, I was an EMM consultant. I'm sorry, an email consultant.
Fascinating background. Thanks for that. So, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. What have been the biggest one, two, three changes in the enterprise mobility space over the last decade? Obviously, lots of tech and bring your own devices and security challenges, but what's been most impactful for you?
Well, for me, I think if I think back to the early days, one of the biggest problems was, and my friends over at Google will probably want to stick an ice pick in my neck for saying this, uh, but because they don't like to use the old fragmentation word. So
Right, right.
even when iOS first came out, there was not a lot of configurations or remote configurations to allow mobile devices to be adequately managed. Back then, it was called MDM, which stands for mobile
Mhm.
device management, because it was really particular about the device and the features of it so much. It didn't really include apps, and it didn't really include any other ancillary services that went on to EMM, which is enterprise
Mhm.
mobility management. And then now everybody's using the new sexy word UEM, right? Unified endpoint management. They've essentially just added more features, and that's why they changed. But one of the biggest changes I thought was the management, particularly in Android land. All the OEMs back 10 years ago were building their own management framework. And the MDMs and the EMMs back then, they were working overtime to try and build all these special APIs like the Zebras of the world, the
Mm.
Samsung Safe. There was a bunch of different API platforms to manage specific devices. Over the years, and actually with Android 5, I was at Android when this release was Android Enterprise. That was its sort of genesis, and that's where the management of Android device changed, where Google normalized it. So now, essentially, over the last, I don't know, what is it, 8 years? Actually, it's been 10 years now. it doesn't matter what Android device you purchase, whether it's a Samsung device, one of our devices, a Motorola device, it doesn't matter. They all are required to have the same management API stack in the operating system, as long as it's Android certified. And so that really normalized fragmentation, if you will. That's one of the biggest things I've changed. And obviously, the second would be the more and more mobile everybody went, specifically over the last probably 6, 7 years. Security has just exponentially increased. So the types of controls, the features, the integrity checking capabilities, rooting and jailbreak protection, that has all amplified itself up to such a high level now. So that's where I would say the big two things for me was managing a device, and then the security controls and features available for managing and protecting devices.
Well, those sound relatively minor, but those are huge challenges
Yeah.
that you've managed to overcome. And you're in a unique position of being an OEM. You actually have custom hardware as well as providing solutions. So tell us about that journey and why a custom device versus just an off the shelf product.
Yeah, great questions. There's a couple of things there. Um, the way we look at it, the way I look at it, the way the company looks at it is there's always been this consumer first approach. Um,
Mm,
the 3 billion devices. We're just talking about Android at the moment, but the 3 billion plus devices that are checking into the Google Play Store every day. Um, those devices are what we call consumer first. In other words, Google gets the biggest amount or the biggest bang for their buck by supporting in like just consumer devices, right? Then along that management path that I was telling you about, well, some of those devices needed to be managed, right? So all the consumer first devices out there, the Pixel devices, the everything I've already mentioned, they can be bought from a local retailer, right? And they can be used personally, or they can be enrolled in an EMM, and there's management. But that brings some challenges, right? Is
mm,
consumer first devices, typically the OEMs, they want you to buy the newest thing every year. So they continually roll out new devices, and they want you to, they're incentivized and they incentivize their carriers to get you to buy the latest and greatest, newest thing every year. So for a business, that's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because if you purchase, say, 30,000 devices, I just made up this number, of a specific device right now, this year, right, at the end of this time next year, they're going to be trying to get you to buy the newest thing. So what does that mean? Well, that device you bought a year ago, the inventory of those devices is going to slowly be going down, right?
mm.
So what happens for a lot of enterprise customers is they get caught in a cycle where over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 years, they end up having a fleet of, anywhere from 2 or 3 to 10 different devices for the same purpose. That's a support nightmare, not to let alone the updates that come to those devices could be, depending on if enough of them sold from the carrier or from the OEM, they may stop putting updates out. Even though Android supplies those updates every month, a carrier or an OEM has no incentive to keep updating that device if they only sold 100 or even 500,000 of these of a particular device globally. It doesn't make sense. They make their next big buck on the next device. Where we come into play is we build enterprise first devices. We
Mm.
use Qualcomm and MediaTek processors that have a long life cycle, so we can continue to get the drivers to update, to put into the operating system, so that our devices can be easily managed out to 7 years. You'll continue to get those security updates. And we also do private label devices. So when we build a device for a customer, we work with them to forecast how many devices they're going to need. And so we make a single SKU available for that device for the lifetime of the contract. That could be anywhere from
Ah,
3, 5, 7 years. So they get the same SKU globally, no matter where they are. And that device is available for 7 years. They don't have to worry about inventory. That we're going to keep making it specifically for them. That's one of the key main differences there.
fascinating. And talk a little bit about Android Enterprise. What's the state of play with it? What's the roadmap look like? And how do you get access to it? From Google.
Yeah, so Android Enterprise is It's not so much a feature. Like some people think it's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's a set of APIs. It's much more than that.
Okay.
Android Enterprise is a solution for partners that Google created. That's part of the management fragmentation reduction, right? So now there's a management plane across all devices. But what comes with that is a whole host of other items. So it's about
Uh-huh.
managing the device features. It's about enabling partners and customers to easily enroll their devices without having to do a whole lot of kitting, and that's done through different enrollment models. One of the biggest one is what they call Android Zero Touch. So essentially, when
Hmm.
you purchase, whether it's one device or a million devices, um, we can add your zero touch. We can add your IMEIs and serial numbers to the zero touch portal. And what that does, it actually enables a device to begin an enrollment right out of the box. So as soon as you pull the shrink wrap off and turn it on, it actually, as soon as it connects to the internet, it starts an automatic enrollment to include
Hmm.
applications, security policies. So literally within a minute, you have a fully enrolled device for that user right out of the box. So that really drives down the TCO for a kitting and enrollment process. The other side of it is the ancillary services that Google supplies to us. Things like Google Play Protect, which is the largest anti-malware product on the planet, even including on desktops. It's built into all GMS certified Android devices. It's always running in the background, and it scans the device, whether they're side-loaded apps, whether they're privately deployed, um, or even from the something you download. If you allowed side loading, it checks every app every 24 hours. The other thing you get with Android Enterprise is something called the managed Google Play Store. You can manage a device. You can set the requirements for a passcode. You can deploy security settings, but an Android device is worth nothing if you can't manage the applications. I mean, that's what you're using the phone for, right? So with Managed Google Play, you can actually create allow lists and block lists of specific apps that appear within a quote unquote managed private Google Play Store. So the users only see what you allow them to see. And there's a whole host of other configurations that you can automatically configure apps. So think of it as a cradle to grave enrollment to the time you retire the device. Android Enterprise has all the components and management features. So it's more of a platform enhancement for managing devices.
Oh, fantastic. I had no idea
Mhm.
they were so far along. And you
Yeah.
talk a lot about zero touch deployment. What does that mean exactly from
Yeah.
your
So
standpoint?
so good example. So this isn't a sales pitch, but and so I'm not going to mention any customers, but essentially customers that come to us, or any customer that matter, one of the things, they know what the cost is going to be for a device, right? They negotiate up
Mhm.
front. They know they're going to pay X amount of dollars for these many devices. Some of the unknowns are the soft costs. It's like, how much does it cost per device for me as a company to get the device in, and then how do I get it set up and ready for user A or for use case A? And a lot of money is saved by reducing that kitting, staging, and enrollment process.
Mm.
So therein lies zero touch enrollment. Basically, what we can do is we put in the IMEI number if it's a carrier enabled device, or if it's just a Wi-Fi only device, a serial number. And then you add a configuration to it. So essentially, let's say I want to send 5,000 devices to a particular company. I don't even have to. I don't even have to unlock the box. I don't have to add a Gmail account to it. I don't have to manually install apps, set policies, like anything like that. When the device turns on, the first thing it does when it gets connected to the internet, whether it's through a carrier or a Wi-Fi network, is, normally when you take an Android device out of the box and you turn it on and you connect, the very next thing it says is welcome. It may, depending on the carrier, it may ask you a few questions, but then the very first thing it asks for is, give me your Google account, give me your Gmail account, right? That's what all Android
Mm.
devices want. If the call, when the device turns on and it goes out and Google says, hey, you're supposed to be zero touch enrolled, then it basically replies back to the device and says, yes, this is the company ID you need to be enrolled under. Here's the configuration. and basically it starts an out of the box automatic enrollment.
Mm.
We've seen customers save anywhere from 60 to 95% on their enrollment, kitting, and staging costs. That's huge when you start getting up into to the 10,000s or the 100,000s of devices over the course of a year that get deployed. It is a tremendous cost savings. Not only that, it reduces manual errors. So you don't have to worry about users or help desk people configuring devices and making a mistake, and then it gets shipped out, and then you get help desk costs. This is all automated, and it's like it's foolproof basically. And the last piece of that is you're locked into an enterprise environment. That's critical because in some cases, users may quote unquote lose their device, and then they'll take it home and try and do a factory reset. This is a common practice, and then they'll have a phone for free, right? Well, zero touch enrollment, no matter, even if you flash to the device or you do a factory reset, it's going to always go back through that enrollment process.
Mm.
So you can never use it as a personal device until you remove it from that console, right? So there's a lot of other features, but essentially it just really drives the enrollment and kitting process, and really reduces that part of the cost of ownership.
Fantastic. And tell us
Yeah.
about your devices. I think they're the Rhino Mobility Devices. Great name.
Yeah.
What's unique or different about them versus a commercial, off the shelf product?
Good question. So again, we going back to the previous discussion, or the item that I mentioned, is the devices they're built with depending on the customer, or
Mm.
we might change up a few components, but the Rhino devices are a launch point. These are the devices we build. They're enterprise first, which means there's no carrier bloatware at all. These devices are actually network certified on the 3 US carriers and many carriers overseas. The benefit there is we have the one SKU. We have all
Mm.
the bands already in the device. We put the modem in to support all the bands globally, but it's enterprise first. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to have, the 4 cameras on the back that are, 100 megapixels, because most businesses don't need that. So that drives the cost down, right? The other thing is the devices last a lot longer, right? Because of the processors, we can use the long life Qualcomm or MediaTek processors. And then the key here is that we have a very clean operating system. There's no bloatware. There's no special
Mm.
launcher. We don't have any we're not incentivized to put all kinds of special services on our devices. We believe in making a partnership with our customers. They're not just our customers. We partner with them, and we build these devices specifically to their needs to do specific things, and remove all the other stuff they don't need. So Rhino is the launch platform. If you like the C6, for example, is a handheld device, you can get it with a biometric fingerprint reader on the back, or
Oh,
not.
wow.
You can buy one that has a removable, replaceable battery, because
Mm.
let's face it, a device is going to last for 7 years. Batteries don't last that long, right? So
Mm.
the battery is user replaceable on a particular version. That's just a few examples, but the Rhino devices are specifically built for enterprise first, carving off all the consumer pieces that you don't need. So you save up front, and then you get easier management and security after the fact.
Fantastic approach. So, I'd be curious, any industries or verticals or customers you're getting a lot of traction with? I can imagine every kind of business under the sun, but particularly like warehouses or maybe hospitals or other large campuses. Where are you seeing most of your deployments?
Yeah, it's a great question, Evan. It's important to note that even our device, like our off-the-shelf devices, the Rhino devices, can function as what we call a knowledge worker use case. Knowledge
Mm.
worker would be you or me. We have a personal phone or a phone that was supplied to us, and we can inflate what's called a work profile on the device, and then we can have a personal
Hmm.
side of the device. So I can have my personal Gmail, all my personal stuff on the
Oh,
device,
wow.
but I can also have only work apps on my device. And all the work apps would have a little blue briefcase specifying their work only. So my email account for my work is attached to those apps. My Gmail is on the others. That's knowledge worker. While we certainly can do that, that's not our specialty. Our
Mm.
specialty is fully managed devices, and a lot of times it's either in kiosk mode or single purpose. So
Hmm.
so that's typically what we do is we deploy in that single use case model And that is where you as an admin or a company owner can really control every concept or every part of that device.
Great. So what a great use case for fleets or retail or
Yeah, I was
someplace with
getting
lots of
exactly.
locations.
Yeah, my fault. I forgot to mention. Sorry for that. Yeah, retail is a big for us. Food
Huh?
delivery.
Oh, wow.
We're also we're really we're getting a lot of attention in the healthcare space. Uh, that seems to be where a lot of special purpose devices are needed. A lot of these places are starting to sort of. There's a lot of use cases where an Apple device doesn't make sense. It's too expensive. You can't change features. Like we can add a
Mm.
Honeywell scanner to our device if you have a need
Oh,
for it,
wow.
or we can move the power button from the left side to the right side. There's endless examples, and well, you just can't customize, and Apple devices. So you see a lot of use cases in retail, logistics, food
Mm.
delivery, and then of course the medical, pharma, medical devices, that kind of thing. And the reason that's really taking off is because of the underlying management framework. There's a lot of use cases where a device won't even be held by a person very often. It's not a knowledge worker
Oh,
scenario,
wow.
but yet you want to be able to deploy apps to it without somebody going to it. You may want to reboot the device. You may want to remote control it to fix a problem. So those are all the features that we would deploy in those specific environments. And then also finally, we have some SBIR contracts, small business innovative research grants from the Department of Defense. So we're building some custom devices there. Um, and then obviously those are the main areas that we focus on.
Fantastic. And so this is all made in the USA, I presume, if you're working with DoD or other kind of
So, yeah, so
agencies.
so we have a factory in Shenzhen, China. We also have a factory in India as well as Taiwan. And
Uh-huh.
mid next year, we're going to actually have a facility in Mexico, one of the newer
Oh,
places.
wow.
Obviously, the cheapest place to build a device is China. But for Department of Defense, as long as it's what they call TAA compliant, we can build the
Mm.
devices there, or certain parts of it we can build there. Um, for DoD, we can order components from certain places, but yes, like the assembly of the device and the operating system engineers must be U.S. citizens, and it has to be done in the U.S.
Interesting.
And so we have a separate department that does that.
You are a wealth of info, sir. I haven't stumped you once on any of these questions. Maybe the
Thank
next
you.
one I'll be able to get you. You know, AI is everywhere all the time, top of mind these days. Is there a role for AI in enterprise mobility or sort of your solution set?
Oh, 100%. I mean, one of the
Okay.
biggest ones that you hear about, I think AI really, for purposes of business, it's just, if you can think of it, you can do it, right? So Android in particular and our devices is a perfect platform for that, because a lot of the devices now, especially from Google and part of GMS, is there's a lot of AI services built into the Android operating system, excuse me, for developers to build really creative solutions on top of. Um, a couple of great examples that I've seen recently are, you'll have one of our Rhino devices, and maybe it's paired to some smart glasses. And the
Mm.
app on the phone, a good example is you're walking through a bank. Maybe you're a network engineer. You're walking through a bank, and the AR, it's AR, but it's tied to AI. And so you'll be walking through the hallway, and it's actually showing you arrows in your goggles where it is to the network closet. When you open the network closet, AI does an inspection and says, "Oh, the cabling isn't right," or whatever, right? So there's that. There's also a big one is image recognition. So Android, when paired with the right services, can do. I'm sure you've heard of the breast cancer or the cancer. AI can scan an image, and in
Mm.
many cases has detected a cancerous piece, um, where a doctor may have overlooked it. They're overworked. Bless our doctors. They're wonderful, but the healthcare system, doctors are super busy and they can make mistakes. But the AI on particularly Android tablets that we have, the doctor can pull up an image, and then AI can assist a doctor, as an example, and say, "Hey, maybe you want to look at this area. What do you think?" because the AI looked at it very quickly. So a lot of these things are done on device, but then a lot of things for AI are started on device and then processed in secure cloud environments, right? So there's always a sign of a pairing. Those are two really good examples, but there's so many more. I mean, you just
Oh,
Google
I bet.
mobile AI and you can just you go down a rat hole. But yeah,
Yeah,
very
so much
interesting.
opportunity, so many interesting scenarios ahead. So as we wind up the year here, what are you looking forward to over the next few weeks? And any trips or travel around? I know you guys do a lot of events and other kind of industry forums.
Yeah.
What's on your radar?
Yeah. So what's on my radar and the company radar? We're going to be moving into our new HQ. So
Oh,
we don't
well
even
done.
lease the building. We actually purchased a building, and we've been spending the
Wow.
last year retrofitting it. Our MSP department will be there. We'll do some assembly there, and we'll do some kitting and enrollment there. We'll do some our outsourced help desk and our MSP will be there. It's going to be a great new facility. It's very secure and redundant. I'm looking very much forward to that. We're getting ready to take possession, get occupancy permits there. Um, the other thing is, obviously, like you mentioned, we're getting a lot of traction in the different verticals. And so that's attracting a lot of partners that want to partner with us. And so we spent a lot of this year partnering with the US carriers. And
Mm.
I'm not at liberty to say some of the carriers overseas, but we're starting to work with some of those as well. So what I'm excited about is we're going to be moving into Europe to have a presence there from a sales perspective, and the new headquarters, obviously. But then also the new release. We just released our new device line, the C6, the T80, and the T100. Those are the devices that just came off the production line. You can reach out to our sales team and start ordering those today. And then for next year, we have a good plan. We have a good team, and we have to almost be picky and choosy on the partners that want to reach out to us. But we made some good partnerships this year with T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and then partners of theirs to sort of amplify our sales team, and our technical team as well, to get the products out in the market and solve solutions and problems that customers may have that they don't know there's a solution for. So that's what we're doing. That's what I'm excited about.
Well, so fun, so interesting, and thanks for sharing all the insights. Great work ahead. I don't know, maybe I'll see you next year at one of the industry events like Mobile World Congress, the big show in
Oh yeah, we'll definitely
Barcelona,
be.
or
We will certainly be there, Evan. We'll be there.
okay, well, I'll buy you and the team a cerveza. And until then, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for joining me, Mike.
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Social Mobile with any questions you have. They're all over social media. Do quite a good job. Thanks everyone.